Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the third Wednesday chapter meeting of the Project Management Institute Central Indiana chapter. I'm glad you could make it tonight. It's really exciting to have you here. We're going to have a fantastic program tonight. Plus, we've got a bonus feature that we're going to get to hear from some of our candidates that are running for elected office for the chapter. So that'll come a little bit later in the evening. So I'd like to welcome you all here. I heard there's some new members who haven't been here before, so welcome. And certainly we welcome back everybody who's been here before. I don't have the clicker. Casey, can you click me? Thank you. Okay, so certainly our goal is to help to get you from where you are to where you want to be in your professional career. We do that presenting wonderful speakers. We also got some exciting things coming up later this month that will be very interesting to a lot of you. And online participants, make sure you put any questions or issues you have in the chat, and we'll get those resolved. Okay, we'd like to thank our program team. It takes a lot of people to put these events on. They're very complex. These are all the people that helped in some way to make this presentation possible. Wow, that's a touchy clicker. We have a volunteer and member appreciation event coming up on November 12th. So make sure you all come out. We're going to get together and do some networking and enjoy some Kismetic beer. So make sure that you sign up for that. It's a free event, as I understand it. Our corporate sponsor, Progio, we certainly thank them. They help us put on these great programs for you. And we've got some new chapter members this month. Well, actually last month, because we don't have the list for this month yet. So certainly welcome to them. Any in the room? Any online? No? Okay. We've got newly certified members. So these are people that have earned various credentials. Anybody in the room got a new credential? Yeah? No? Okay, congratulations. Maybe we'll get you next month. You'll be up here. Okay, we've got a career development event coming up next week. So on October 24th, we'll be meeting out at Brooksource down in Broad Ripple. And we'll be having a career development workshop. So we'll be talking about how to tune up your resume, get better on LinkedIn, how to do interviewing. And we're going to have an industry panel of people that are going to speak, hands-on workshops. So we're going to actually do some one-on-one coaching with some people that are hiring managers and people that are understand these things. And we're going to offer free professional headshots. So fantastic event. Make sure you sign up for that. It's on the calendar. Let's see, we do have a job board. So if you're a hiring manager, you need somebody, feel free to put something up on our job board. We're certainly inviting you to our board of directors meeting, which is the first Wednesday of every month. We'd love to have you kind of sign into that. Make sure when you're signed up on PMI.com that you're signed up for auto renew. It's a real pain in the rear end if you forget to renew. We have a YouTube channel where we're starting to get some videos of the chapter meetings if you want to refresh what you saw. And we have a survey tonight. So make sure that I think there's a QR code floating around. Make sure you shoot that and let us know what you think, because we always want to make these programs better for you guys. We have our standard legal disclaimer that the lawyers make us put in here. But we've decided that honesty, responsibility, respect, and fairness are values that we need. All the work here presented is the property of the content creator. Any thoughts of the speaker are certainly theirs and not necessarily that of PMI and PMI CIC. And unauthorized reproduction is punishable by federal law. Okay, oops, and that's out of order. And that's out of order. And all that's out of order. So where's my speaker slide? There he is. Okay, so I'd like to introduce tonight's speaker. Tonight's speaker is Andrew Powers. He's going to talk to us about change management in putting in a new psychiatric care facility here in Indianapolis. It's a pretty humongous project from what I've heard. And he's a senior consultant. He has over 10 years of experience in a variety of fields, mainly working with Medicaid type IT systems and hospitals in general. He's also currently a project manager for the My Healthy Baby program, a state-operated program connecting pregnant Hoosiers to local services. So Andrew holds a PMP certification and is a certified Scrum Master. So Andrew, you want to come on up and take the clicker?
Thank you.
Make sure your green light is on.
All right, can everyone hear me okay? Online and in the room? Cool. Let's see here. Are my slides going to pop up here at some point? No, it's okay. No, you're good. Awesome. Thank you. All right, well, hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name's Andrew Powers, and I'm here to talk to you about a project that I worked on several years back for a new psychiatric facility here in Indianapolis called the Neuro Diagnostic Institute. Quick little about me. I've already had a great introduction, so I'm not going to run through it all here, but I'm an IU graduate, go Hoosiers. I studied management and finished with a business minor. And then afterwards, while I was working my first job out of college, I gathered my MBA while I was living in Fort Wayne, Indiana. As mentioned, I have my PMP and my Scrum Master certifications. And most recently, I've been working on the My Healthy Baby project here in Indianapolis as a senior project manager. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the project, give you guys a little background about what we were up to. Then primarily I'll be talking about all the change that was involved and some of the strategies and techniques that we used when dealing with that change. And then lastly, I'll also be talking about kind of the various project management roles that we took on within the project. One of the key lessons that I learned that was important to us and the client at the time was being able to act as a consistent voice across all the various work streams that are involved in a big major construction project like that. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the value beyond traditional project management responsibilities in ways that we did that. I do plan on leaving plenty of time for question and answers at the end. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and hold them. If you're online, go ahead and just type them in the chat, and I'm assuming somebody can read them to me here when we get to that point in the presentation. So just to get us started here, I wanted to do a little bit of a group poll here. Does anyone in the room or online currently work or have any previous experience working in the psychiatric health field? Yeah, I didn't think I'd get a lot of takers in the room. I see a maybe. Any chance you mind sharing? Okay, yeah. We worked with those on the hospital. That's a part of it. Yep. Let's see. Did we get any action online? Oh, okay. Oh, no worries. People we do have joining us. There you go. Okay. Well, I hope this is an interesting presentation for you all then, and maybe you'll learn a little bit about something that you're not all that familiar with. Cool. All right, so I'm going to jump into it and just start by giving a little bit of a project overview and a background of the Neuro Diagnostic Institute. So the Neuro Diagnostic Institute is one of 6 state psychiatric hospitals. It's located here in Indianapolis. You can see the number 2 star is where that's located. Um, and so all the different hospitals kind of have different specialties that they handle. The Logansport State Hospital, for example, is mostly a Department of Corrections, judicial sort of a system. And then obviously the Evansville Psychiatric Children's Hospital or Children's Centers focus more for children. And so I don't know if you guys know this, but in order to get committed to one of these hospitals or go to them, it can happen in several ways. One of them would be a judicial commitment. And it typically happens when the person is a threat to themselves or others. And so that's how you get committed to the hospital. And then eventually, ideally, you're rehabilitated and you're able to leave the hospital once you're no longer deemed, a risk to yourself and or others. Going here. Okay, are we good? All right, so yeah, just some quick background. So the NDI was actually replacing the LaRue Carter Hospital, which was an older facility that had opened in 1952, located at 2601 Cold Spring Road, sort of on the east side of town. And it was eventually decommissioned in the spring of 2019. This building was a very old building with very limited use of technology, and it also sat on a very large, sprawling campus. And when I say there was no technology, they didn't even have Wi-Fi at the building when I was working on the project. It was physical keys almost to enter everything. And it'd been around for a long time, so some of the staff that we worked with had literally spent their entire careers working at this campus. Oh, and then another thing that they did is they did not use a electronic medical record system. So at the time, they were doing all paper medical records. So with that, somebody decided it was time to upgrade and move into the new world here. And so they came up with the NDI. And one of the main goals of the NDI, outside of just getting up to speed with the modern times, was to really have it be more of a short stay assessment, to have shorter term patients there, and then transfer the patients out to the appropriate setting. Whereas before, a lot of the LaRue Carter patients as well had been there for a long time. So here's just like a little bit of an overview of the new facility itself. It's 7 floors tall. It has 159 beds, and really just based on kind of the number of floors and thinking about comparing this to a large sprawling campus, that alone caused a lot of change. The workers were moving from a large facility. They all had their own offices, and the patients all had a lot of room and stuff. It's really a much more condensed, vertical sort of setting. And I'm not going to read all this stuff, but those are some of the focus of care and services and benefits. And another thing not mentioned here that I thought was interesting is the new facility also had a lab for sleep studies, because a significant portion of the population that are in these facilities have sleep apnea. And then just another look at the hospital itself. These were the various units within the hospital. They typically had 2 units on each floor, one on each side. The ones that are bold might be a little bit hard to see on the screen, but the first 2, for example, are bolded. Those were brand new units that they were not doing this at the old facility of LaRue Carter. So these needed to be entirely staffed up, and we did that with contracted staff. The NW neurocognitive unit, that was for traumatic brain injuries for adults. Then another little interesting tidbit is 7 West there at the bottom. That was actually initially supposed to be a unit for the Department of Corrections, for inmates and people in jail. But they backed out kind of at the 11th hour, so then we ended up converting it to a adolescent autism unit. So just a couple interesting things about the design itself that I thought were interesting and that I learned while working on the project. One was the concept of a biophilic design. That center picture there is kind of a good example of it. It's sort of the concept that, you know, nature is healing in a way. And so a lot of the artwork and designs within the hospital itself sort of reflected this. But one of the things that was interesting is it always needed to be a little bit abstract. It was never, you know, actual photographs of real places, because the potential that somebody experienced a traumatic event in one of those environments. So they didn't want it to be too realistic, but they still kind of wanted to keep the natural themes. Other stuff that was interesting that we had to work with was ligature-resistant faucets and towel holders, and, you know, all sorts of things to prevent, you know, people from potentially tying something up and harming themselves that way. Same with weighted beds and chairs. Had to, you know, we didn't want them picking things up and throwing them at each other or staff or themselves. And then, you know, rounded edges, slanted window sills, things like that. Really just all the stuff that you take for granted when you're thinking about designing a house for whatever reason was really important to consider in the design here. Another consideration was around adult-child interactions. They were not allowed to interact with each other. So all the design that went into the hospital and the paths of travel and the processes that were developed were to avoid that from happening. The picture on the left there are the outside terraces. That was actually while the building was under construction. Eventually, those kind of had these little metal mesh screens that went over it. And so it allowed the patients to kind of go outside and get fresh air. But if you were on the outside looking in, you wouldn't be able to see the patients themselves. Because that was another consideration, is they didn't want the general public to be able to see the patients. So in 2017, they started breaking ground and building the new hospital. All right, so now I'm going to get into really the important part of this presentation, which is talking about the systematic change and what we did, and then some things that the techniques and strategies that we used to deal with the change. So the first and most obvious one was the physical building location. On the left side there is where LaRue Carter was initially located, or we're on the west side of town. And then the NDI was located 10 miles east of LaRue Carter. The NDI shares a campus and a parking garage with Community Hospital East. And it had a variety of impacts, you know, just the commute time for staff. Some people live close to work, and now it's going to take them longer to get to work. And then just little things that I hadn't ever even thought. They could almost park right in front of the building and just walk right on in. So here I'm just going to highlight some of the other things that were some of the big changes. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but at the old facility, almost every single staff member had their own office. They were all pretty big. There was too much space there. They didn't even know what to do with it all. But in the new facility, really only the administration staff would have their own permanent offices. Outside of that, all the nurses and unit leaders and so on and so forth would have to share a shared workspace every day. The conference room was kind of a similar situation. There were too many at the old hospital, so there was never an issue of scheduling meetings or, you know, getting people together. But at the new facility, space was much more limited, so that kind of became an issue of trying to figure out how to work together in that new space. And then really all the processes changed. I called out the admission process, but really every single process changed. The security definitely changed as well, because we did a lot of shared services with Community Hospital East, so we ended up incorporating some of their security policies into the new building. And then the food and the cleaning services also changed, in that at the old facility we had our own hospital staff that did all that work. And in the new facility, that was a shared service with Community Hospital East. So it's Community Hospital workers were preparing the food and bringing it up to the patients every day, and same with the cleaning services. Talked a little bit about the technology already. Old facility, paper medical records, very limited use of technology, did not have Wi-Fi. communication systems involved, picking up the phone and calling a number and calling the security guys at the front desk. At the new facility, they'd be bringing in, implementing a EMR. They implemented Cerner at the time. They implemented a Vocera technology, which I don't know if you've seen them at the hospital. They're kind of these little hands-free, walkie-talkie looking things that you can talk into. So that was another technology that was implemented. Really just like the conference rooms and all the audio, video equipment, things like that. That was all new. Same with the classrooms and the telehealth. It was a total transformation and upgrade in technology. Just a couple more areas of change that they experienced. Mealtime was a big one. You know, the patients experienced a change in that. At the old facility, they went to a designated area every day, and they got served their food, and then they went back to their units. At the new facility, the meals were now brought onto their units. So it was different food. It was now food was being served to them on their units. They weren't going out to it. Same with recreation. At the old facility, they could literally just go outside. There was playgrounds and areas to walk around and stuff. Well, they couldn't do that at the new facility. So what they did is they built an outdoor terrace that sat on the second floor. It was kind of cool, and it ended up being kind of a playground area. So that was a kind of a rendering of it. But if you can imagine, you know, little playground equipment and stuff out there is what it ultimately ended up looking like. One of the interesting things about it too is the ground on that area is they couldn't be concrete. You know, it had to be soft. So it was kind of like this soft little rubbery mesh all around the ground as you walk around it. Let's see. And then they also had what they called the treatment mall, and that was sort of an area where they had a gymnasium. They had a barber shop up there. They had a little clothing stores. They had a little like kind of kitchen thing where they did kind of daily living skills and stuff with the patients. So that was all kind of in one designated area, where before they did that in entirely different spaces at the old facility. And then then another big change was just storage for patient belongings. At the old facility, there was plenty of room. So if a patient came in, they had a whole suitcase full of stuff. It wasn't a big deal. They could hang on to it. Space was much more limited at the new facility, so it was important to kind of limit the amount of items that the patients brought in, and that was something that the staff actually had to work with the patients on that were moving over. So how do we manage that? Well, real quickly, just a quick definition. Change management is a systematic approach to dealing with the transition or the transformation of an organization's goals, processes, and technologies. The purpose of change management is to implement strategies for affecting and controlling change and helping people to adapt change. So really, one of the biggest aspects of change management that I ran into on this project, and probably relevant on a lot of projects, is communication. You know, communication, it's not a one-time transfer of information. And this is a definition that I found online, but I thought it was really applicable. And it requires commitment, clarity, and consistency. It should engage employees through two-way communication methods like surveys, focus groups, and informal feedback collection. And when leadership involves employees, they feel valued. When employees feel valued, they are more likely to embrace the change and participate in making it happen. So a lot of communication with staff occurred. As we were getting closer to go live, we were putting together monthly bulletins and staff bulletins and sending those out every month with updates and progress about what was going on. Every couple of months or so, they had town hall meetings where the hospital leadership would get in front of the entire staff and just field questions, give them updates and field questions. Another thing they did was they did periodic surveys, asking staff how they felt about stuff, what were they apprehensive about, you know, what were they worried about, what were they excited about, and kind of try to use that information to make decisions going forward. Communications with the patients and families, you know, it's not just the staff. Since the new hospital is going to be more of a short-term stay hospital, some of those long-term patients had to move to a different hospital system. And I don't know if you remember that picture of the map of the hospitals, but they're not that close together. So it was kind of a significant change for some of the patients. They'd be moving far away, and you know, some of them had family in town that were used to going and visiting them, and so that whole the whole thing kind of changed, and that had to be communicated to them. Then we also had the communication to the general public. At a certain point, people are going to start asking, "Hey, what the heck is this new big building getting built here?" And oh my gosh, it's a psychiatric facility. What does that mean? It might be scary if you live in the neighborhood there. There's houses right next to the hospital. But part of what we did is, we made sure to have official FSSA news releases. We gave open house tours of the facility a couple weekends. It was just open to the general public. People could come in and they got tours of the facility, and they learned a little bit about it. We had, ribbon cutting ceremony where the lieutenant governor came in and kind of did a thing for the news or whatever. And then additionally, we needed to recruit. So as I mentioned earlier, some of the units were entirely new, and it was a different skill set than the staff that they currently had. So we had job fairs, and we had to kind of communicate those out, let people know that they were going on, and then hold the job fair. And then lastly, processes, policies, and workflows. They all changed. I mean, some of the policies were as simple as changing LaRue Carter to NDI, but realistically, they didn't have a policy for how to use an iPad or how to use Cerner or this and that. So a lot of new policies and processes and workflows, and they had to be communicated a lot to the staff, and then additionally communicating as part of training. There was so much training involved. It's not even funny. I'll talk a little bit more about that though here in a little bit. So another aspect of this, outside of communication, was really engaging the staff. So what we did is we kind of set up these different transformation teams and work groups. The transformation teams and work groups were kind of like subgroups within the hospital. So there was like a security and IT group, there was a child psychology group, there was a facilities team, a pharmacy team, et cetera. And so we met with those groups. We met with the leaders of those units as well as their frontline staff to really talk through the decision-making process for the future NDI workflows, policies, and processes. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of policies that needed to be updated. So we couldn't do that in a silo. We needed that group to weigh in on all that kind of stuff. Also, as part of the transformation teams, we had a steering committee, and that was a group that we met with weekly with hospital leadership from all the various departments. And within that steering committee, we would kind of report out on, hey, what are our updates this week from the various subgroups, any issues that we're running into. We would always talk about the communication plans. That was a big aspect of this project from the very beginning. Talk about whatever the current risks were that were going on, and then at certain points when the employee surveys would go out, that would be the group that would get together and kind of discuss the survey results and decide whether or not to take action on anything like that. So this is an example of one of the workflows that we worked on with one of the subgroups. This is just the admission process and kind of runs through, what happens when the patient comes into the facility up until the patient is transported to the patient's bedroom. And so these were things that we built with the teams themselves, and then these were things that we also made available and handed out to the staff before they arrived at the new hospital and while they were at the new hospital. We had these all printed out in binders and stuff. So like I mentioned, another big aspect of this was training. I don't know how many lines are there, but there's probably 15 or so, maybe even more, of just all the different things that needed to be trained on. We just had building activation, we had the Cerner training, we had computer competencies. That was an interesting one. And when we went from a paper system to a totally electronic system, a lot of the staff weren't used to doing that. And what we found out, and it kind of surprised us, was that some of the staff members didn't even have the computer skills that we probably all in this room take for granted that we use every day. So we had to have just really basic computer skills with some of these staff members. And then what was also interesting too is we knew that training needed to happen, but we didn't really have an established training plan early on in the game. And so this is something we came up with probably in late November. We're trying to open this hospital in March. And so finally we said, all right, we need to get a plan in place here. And so this was kind of something that we put together and brought to the steering committee. And here we kind of outline, hey, here's the estimated training hours per week that we need. And, here's the schedule that we can come up with. How do we work to make this happen? And this was something that kind of became self-evident as we worked with the various vendors. Every vendor kind of came in with their plan that they were used to doing. And eventually we started realizing, oh my gosh, Vocera needs 3 weeks of all hands on deck training or something. And like, that just wasn't reasonable to do. So we sort of had to have a bit of a negotiation with the vendors as well and say, look, here's everything that we're doing. How do we fit this in? Otherwise the hospital's not going to be able to open on time. And the hospital leadership was very adamant about the hospital opening on time. So we had to figure it out. Another aspect of the training was the day in the life training that we did. And we also did in paths of travel training. So the day in the life training was kind of fun. It was something that I actually got to help out with. And that's where we would have staff actually come to the new facility before we were open. And we would kind of role play different scenarios and walk through the various established paths of travel. So like one scenario that we did was, how do we handle if there's an aggressive patient? So we kind of practice using the vocal commands to use the Vocera device to call in for the extra staff support, and then transferring that patient to a quiet room until they calm down, and trying to use these established paths of travel as well. The bottom picture here is also kind of a good example of where the separation was really important and where the paths of travel were important. So on one side, you've got an adolescent substance abuse disorder unit, and then on the right side, you've got a general adult unit, and those populations were not allowed to interact with each other. So everything needed to be very, very precise in how the people were moving around and what we were doing. And then just a couple other things about dealing with change. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of people had spent a lot of time at LaRue Carter, and it was important not to forget about LaRue Carter. So one of the things that we did was we put up a kind of a LaRue Carter memorial display within the lobby of the NDI. And then another thing that we did was we allowed the displaced employees a chance to work in the new role at the NDI. So, for example, some of the cleaning services folks or the food preparation folks, we kind of negotiated with Community Hospital East, where they would at least interview these folks and give them a chance to work in the new facility. All right, so then lastly on change management, we needed a lot of support on the day of hospital activation. So one of the things we did was we established a command center. And what this was is we had one team at LaRue Carter and another team at the NDI, and they were in constant communication with each other all day long as the patient transport began and the ongoing communication throughout the day. So we'd have one bus of folks leave, and then so we would know that they were en route, so then the NDI could prepare to intake the new group of patients. We also had to coordinate with law enforcement and emergency services. We were able to get police escorts to help with the patient transportation. And then another aspect of it was we needed to make sure that resources were available for support. Not only for the staff, but also for the patients. So for the staff, we had representatives from all of our vendors, all the tech vendors were there to help troubleshoot as we were starting to get the new hospital up and running. But one of the interesting things that I learned about was the chaplain. One of the staff members was actually a chaplain for the patients, and he was on site all day long for moving day. And they also allowed the patients, mostly for the children, but really anyone that wanted it, was, this is a scary time for the patients. They're getting in a bus, they're going somewhere new, they don't know what's going on. So we let them bring like a comfort item of some sort with them on the ride to the new hospital. It can be a teddy bear, whatever helped them feel a little bit better. And then at the end of the day, we had a end of the day team debrief. And this was pretty interesting. It mostly revolved around the kind of the coordination, the logistics of it all, kind of like, job well done, guys. The meeting was kind of a blur, but one part really stood out to me. And it was the hospital chaplain got up and he spoke and he gave his perspective about how the day went. And he told us that he made sure to visit every single patient once they arrived in their unit, and he asked them 2 questions: how was the ride over, and how do you like the new space? And he indicated that the responses were generally positive. And I just thought that was like a really cool and good representation of patient-centered care. You know, it was someone really going out of their way to talk to these folks as human beings. And you know, it's easy as a project manager sometimes to forget about the human aspect of what's actually taking place. Okay. So yeah, so I'm going to get into just a little bit more of the project management stuff that we worked on. You know, as you can imagine, project management and construction, the world is very, very organized. This was a big meeting that we had one day with a bunch of different vendors, and everyone's kind of putting sticky notes on the timeline of figuring out when things need to happen. And each color is a different vendor, and each week had a major task that folks were working on. And then we kind of took that information and converted it into more of a document like this that showed all the different activity streams in various swim lanes, and kind of looking at the different contingencies of what needed to happen when, you know, certain things earlier on in the project was a little bit more relevant. But you know, we couldn't move on to one aspect of the construction until all the big pieces of equipment were in the basement or whatever, because you know they had to literally bring cranes to bring some of these equipment down there, so they couldn't start working on the first floor until that happened. And then you know we couldn't start bringing in some of the expensive medical equipment until all the security and the keying and badge and all that was figured out. So there's just a kind of a picture of the hospital while it was being constructed. I'll go to the next slide here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so as a project manager and having insight into all these what all the different vendors were doing in the schedule, I always felt it was really important to advocate for the client and the patients when I was interacting with the vendors. So every single day, especially as we got closer to go live, we met with the construction vendor daily to make sure the critical issues were being addressed. And one interesting example that I can come up with for advocating for the client and the patients was within the gymnasium itself. There was a door to a closet where like games and equipment would be held for the patients to play with, but it didn't lock, and there were some minor issues with it. The light switch wasn't working, and the construction company was kind of like, "Oh, we'll worry about that later. Not a big deal." And I go up on the unit. I'm talking to one of the staff members, and she's like, "Look, there's nothing for us to do in the gym. You know, it's like we can sit there and sit in a circle and you know, hang out, but like we want our games." And so that's the kind of stuff that I would bring back to the construction meetings every day and say, "Look, I know you guys don't think it's a big deal, but it kind of is, and here's why." So it kind of helped be able to influence a little bit about their priorities. Another thing that we did before the hospital opened was myself and my colleague at the time. We walked around every single unit, tested all the light switches. We were testing out the computer, or the computers weren't there yet, but we were testing out the TVs and all the random stuff that we just wanted to be working by the time that the staff and the patients got on there. Games and TVs, the meeting rooms especially, it was, some of them were pretty buggy at first, so we were just really kind of working to make sure things would work as seamlessly as possible when the new staff came in there. And one of the things that we did too as well is we ended up kind of putting together little how-to guides for all the different rooms. You know, press this switch to activate this thing, and so on and so forth. Another thing we did was we walked around the units and we did a lot of inspections, mostly inspecting the patient areas for safety issues. There was a lot of areas where there were there were physical keys in some areas, and a lot of them had really sharp edges on them that we had to make sure were kind of ground down and rounded out before anyone was on that unit. So, and also just other things that we came across, like, hey, this water machine doesn't work, or hey, this room's supposed to not have any phone jacks or plugs and stuff. It's a quiet room. It's where you bring a patient that's out of control, so you don't want anything in there. Things like that. One of the issues that I ran across was one of the one of the bedrooms wouldn't lock, and like that's kind of a big deal. You know, you need to have that working, or just randomly, hey, no TV remotes. Where the heck are the remotes at? They can't use the TVs. And those are actually pictures from the units themselves, and so that's another example. You kind of see the chairs there. Those were all filled with like sand and stuff, extremely heavy, really hard to move around. The tables were bolted down to the ground. You can kind of see in the back there the TVs, what's kind of in the wall there next to the window, and that, you know, that's why you needed the remotes, because you can't have them accessing inside there with all the wires and stuff. This is just kind of an example of a lot of the issues that I mentioned. You know, hey, this lock's broken, or hey, this is a safety issue, or this light switch isn't working. This all kind of rolled into something that I personally tracked and then kind of reported out on the dashboard every day, talking about the to hospital leadership. You know, hey, here's all the issues that we have right now. Here's what's closed. Here's what's open. Here's the high priority stuff, and we would review them every single day. And reported out on this dashboard. There was also a joint commission inspection really close to the, I think it was right after go live. And joint commission is kind of a big deal. They kind of come in, they're kind of a body that oversees hospitals and stuff, and you sort of need their blessing for certain things. So some aspects of how we were prioritizing things were like, hey, is this gonna pass joint commission inspection? Another thing that I talked about earlier was there were public tours. That was something that I had the unique opportunity to be a part of. Picture on the left, there's me giving a tour to actually the owner of my company, NetLogix, at the time. And then over on the right, there's some good examples of the biolithic design that I was talking about. Kind of see the little plants and stuff there on the right, and the kind of the flowers there on the left. So I gave tours during the official public tours, but I also gave tours every now and then. The local media would come by and they'd want to go get some pictures of stuff, and they wanted to put something in a newspaper. So I would help out with that. And then and also, like, I would give tours to other like physicians and mental health professionals that were interested. So just a couple more things. I helped set up the badge and the key cards for the staff. There was a point where they needed help. So they gave us Excel spreadsheets and they said, hey, where do these people need access to? And we literally did all the badging, mapping for the staff. One night before we opened up the new facility, we needed to make sure that all the new staff had badges with their picture on it. So I went into LaRue Carter at like 11 o'clock at night and took pictures of all the third shift workers for their new badges. Yeah, like that's not something I ever thought in a million years I'd be doing. And then another thing I did was the move management, coordinating with the staff and the moving company. So before they moved, I literally walked around the old LaRue Carter Hospital with staff members and the moving company and pointed to boxes and labeled boxes and said, hey, we need to make sure this box gets moved to this location at the NDI, and kind of helped oversee all of that. Then the pharmacy was a big one. The way pharmacy licenses work is you have one license for one hospital, and that license was switching from LaRue Carter to the NDI, so they couldn't have two running at the same time. So they literally had to do a full pharmacy shutdown the night before the hospital, get that all moved over and reopened in the next day. So that was pretty intense of moving things over the night before. In a similar vein, all the computers had to be moved over the night before hospital activations. All the computers that staff members were using until the end of their shift the day before got moved over the night before the hospital opened. And then I was running around with the IT guys, you know, plugging in computers and putting them in the right spot. And we were there till like 2, 3 in the morning, I think, the night before. It was pretty wild. We did a wireless access point mapping. They needed to know where all the different routers were. So I walked around with my laptop with I forget the software, but there's software that kind of like identifies different routers and stuff. So I literally like walked around the hospital with my laptop, and it would pick up a router, and I'd, you know, plop that on a map and did all that for the IT team. And then I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I also supported the training, the implementation of some of the technology. You know, I became a super user for Vocera. And I actually became an admin for Vocera at a certain point where, as new staff would come on and needed accounts, I'd get them set up, you know, and I'd do some training and I would help troubleshoot. And I was also part of the super user training for the Cerner. So then, and that was all to say. In March 2019, the hospital did open successfully. And then we were on the project for a little bit longer. It opened in March. We were on the project till the end of June or so. And some of our post-go live activities was still working through that punch list that I showed you guys earlier, working through all the construction and safety related issues, and supporting all the new users with the various technology components. And then once most of those issues were resolved, we transitioned off the project. And it was actually kind of interesting because they asked for us to leave kind of earlier than our contract was, but that was because there was another department within the state that needed our support. So they were kind of like, hey, when can we let you go? Someone else wants you guys to go do work for them. And so, you know, it's kind of a good thing in a way. So that all kind of led into the current project that I'm working on called My Healthy Baby. That was the project that I transitioned to, and I've been working on ever since. So just a couple final thoughts. You know, effective change management strategies. They can include, you know, visible executive sponsorship, engaging the frontline employees, communicating frequently and openly engaging with and supporting the people managers, and investing in training. And as a project manager, you can stand out by consistently advocating for the clients across the various project work streams that you encounter. And then some of the stuff that I talked about, and it's all about if you have the time to do it and scope of work and that, all that, but fill in the gaps and support work in non-traditional roles if the project scope and the resources allow. Thank you. Are there any questions? I'm going to grab some water real quick.
Yeah.
But then I'll take any questions you guys might have.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think it was an excellent presentation, and we'll get you watered up here, and then have some time for some questions. I got plenty of time here. So, anybody in the room? Oh, sorry, I gotta over here where they can see me. Okay. Yeah.
So there's all these details that you know that you're comfortable with that I would say probably most project managers are comfortable with or don't know. Were you chosen for this project because you already had that background, or was that something that you gathered as part of the project?
That was something I gathered as part of the project. No, I came from working on an IT certification project previously. Before that, I had a little bit of construction experience, but nothing of this scale. A lot of it was me just really spending time with the client, learning what mattered to them, and then kind of going out of my way sometimes to try to understand the issues a little bit. But no, it was I probably learned the most on this project out of any project I've ever worked on. You know, and especially not just the project management stuff, more of the hospital specific things that we did.
Oh, yeah.
One of the first questions in the chat was, is the Neuro Diagnostic unit for veterans?
I don't know that for a fact. I don't think they would exclude veterans by any means, but I don't know if it's specifically for that, to be honest with you. I did go online and try to look at their website before I gave this presentation to see, you know, if anything changed or if they kind of outlined anything. And honestly, online right now, it's a little bit more general information than what I provided you. So I wasn't really able to tell exactly what the units are up to right now.
Also, did you keep a change management goal? Did you update your project management plan and other stuff that you were?
We did, yeah, we did, yep. And then we also we had a change management plan as well. One of the vendors that worked on the project with us was called DSA Life Structures, and they actually had a whole team dedicated to the transformation as well. So they handled a lot of the plans themselves, but they put together, you know, this big book of all the policies and processes and things like that. But yeah, as a project manager, we were tracking all the changes and stuff like that.
Any other questions? Yeah, here.
Yeah, two questions. First one, just general interest. What happened to the old building?
For a while, they were trying to sell it. So when I was still working on the project, they were trying to sell it. And at one point, Marion University, I think, was interested in it. I don't know what happened to it right now. Do you live around there? Do you have any insight?
No.
Okay, I'd be curious actually. Okay.
And I believe also the INC.
Okay. Okay, yeah, good question.
Part two?
Part two is, as you're providing this value outside of your traditional responsibility, is that something where people were acting like, oh, we have these gaps, we need someone to fill it? Or was it you were just seeing that these gaps are there, and so you just filled the void without someone asking, or even needing to ask them?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So I'd say it started out with me and my colleague at the time. We were sort of looking for stuff. We knew they needed help, and we knew that we had extra time. We had availability. So we're like, hey, that sounds like something that maybe we could help with. And as we did that over the course of the project, eventually we sort of became like a go-to guy resource. And then we just got asked to do stuff. And so yeah, it started out with us kind of proactively looking for it, and then it became like, hey, Scott was the name of my colleague at the time, but it kind of became, hey, let's ask Scott and Andrew, maybe they could help with that, or maybe they've got some ideas and stuff. I was technically a junior project manager at the time. It was kind of my first role with any sort of PM title, so I was eager to do whatever I needed to make a good impression, and I learned a lot doing it.
Yeah, that's cool, because as I think about that idea theoretically of doing things outside of my responsibility, I get a little worried about stepping into someone else's role and getting bothered or offended by me.
Yeah, it's definitely, you got to kind of delicately approach it. You don't want to be abrasive and intrusive in a way, but it's just if they need help, it doesn't hurt to make the offer. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, totally.
Yeah.
My question is around
I don't know. I really don't know if we did have one person. If anything, I would say it was the BSA Life Structure group that I mentioned. They facilitated a lot of the transformation subgroups. They kind of came in. Next thing I knew, I was like helping facilitate their meetings like with them. But it was probably more them had the official charge of doing it. But I really don't know. I don't know. Came in 2018 on the project, and it had been ongoing since 2017. So some of the details, I didn't quite understand all the history that built up to the point that I kind of entered the project. By the time I entered the project, it was kind of like, all right, we're trying to make all this happen right now. Here's what we got to do.
Okay, I think I saw one online. I think somebody asked, would you recommend somebody who's new to project management moving into construction project management?
I think it's honestly, a great project management role. I mean, there's it's just like any project, but there's just so many different moving parts and so many contingencies, maybe even more so than like a software development or maybe the more classic project management stuff that we think about. I mean, we were dealing with dozens of vendors, at certain points. There was a furniture vendor, there was a sign vendor, there were electricians, there were locksmiths, and the list really goes on and on and on. So there's a lot to do. It'd be a hard job. It's a hard job to do if maybe it's your first time doing it, but you learn a lot, and it truly is. It's good project management experience.
Sir? Yeah.
Did you have a general contractor?
We did, yeah. Pepper Construction.
Pepper Construction nuances, areas.
They dealt with a lot of them. Yeah, they had a lot of their subcontractors. That was the team that I met with every single day, especially leading up to every single day I was in the Pepper Construction office on site, going through the punch list items, talking about what the next steps were. But they weren't overall all the vendors. Like the furniture vendor, that was unrelated to the construction and stuff. But they did oversee a lot of the vendors.
In terms of everything was paper, everything was electronic.
Yep.
What was that transition? They transitioned literally with paper or
They did, yeah. That wasn't even anything that I touched upon in the presentation, but yeah, there was a health information systems subgroup, and they had to literally get everything scanned and uploaded into the new medical record going into the new facility. So yeah, that was a whole aspect of the project as well, was getting all the old records uploaded and or anything that had passed. And I forget what the time frame was, but there's a certain time period that passes. You no longer need to hold on to the records. So then there was the whole disposal of the records that were no longer needed as well.
Oh, here we go.
Two-part question. At the end of the overall project engagement, did you with the state conduct lessons learned? First part of the question. Second part of the question is, in that lessons learned, is there anything that was in your planning or in your execution that you thought you were going to use? So cost management tool, risk management tool, something along those lines that you did not end up using?
To answer the first part of your question, sadly, no. They might have done it after I left. But as I mentioned, I very quickly got pulled off that project into another project right away that I've been on full-time since. So unfortunately, no, that is something that I probably would have liked to do. And then as to the second part of your question, I don't know if I fully understood it, but I will say one of the lessons that I've learned working on the project was that we should have thought about training much further in advance than we did. That kind of caught us by surprise when we actually started going in and tallying up the hours and thinking about actually like staff time costs and things like that. We were like, oh, we should have started this like several months ago. So that was like a personal lesson learned that I had coming away from it. Like, can't forget about training. Can't forget about training. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a question and a comment. So first thing is based on your response to other questions, you just say there was no cap.
I'm sorry. There's. Oh no, there was not. No.
Then the second question has to do with the kind of issues you run into. Were there any points in time that you run into issues that have to do with clients?
Yeah, so I can't think of specific examples, but the joint commission stuff that I talked about, they're all about compliance. They come in and they're trying to make sure your hospital is up to whatever their compliance standards were. So I wish I had an example of it, but there was a whole laundry list of compliance issues that we did have to work through, and that was a big part of how we prioritize some of the things.
Yeah, so looking at the nature of the project, I know that sometimes depending on the client, it would need some requirements such as applications and HSE. Was that applicable to you or not?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I understood the question.
So projects, in the health realm, sometimes require health, safety, environment certification before you can be a project manager.
Oh, okay. I don't think it was. No, I don't. No, that actually might be my first time hearing that term, to be honest with you.
Okay. Do we have another one online?
Yes. How would you suggest moving into construction project management?
Feet first, head first.
Yeah. I mean, how you go about obtaining the work, I can't really speak to. But really, all project management principles apply once you're working on the project. You need to understand the schedule. You need to understand the risks. You need to understand who the stakeholders are. You need to understand who you're communicating with, who and how and when, and set those cadences. Yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot that's like unique to construction project management from like a general, project management sense. I would just say apply the skills, pay attention to what's in front of you, think about what the client's looking for, and go from there. Okay. That was a much better answer. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, up front here?
More about your role there and your current role. You had mentioned that you're mostly remote.
Mhm.
When you were on site then, is the personal preference if you were looking for work, would you do all on site, hybrid, all at home?
Yeah, I'd probably, depending on the kind of project, I'd lean toward the hybrid. I do personally like the on-site, in-person work, especially if I think about it from like the role of, I'm an outside consultant, so I'm working with a group of people that aren't really my coworkers. And, in a way, we're trying to impress them. And to me, the best way to do that is to get in front of people consistently and they can see what you're doing every day. And I think that was one of the reasons why I became a go-to guy, because I was always around. I wasn't just like a guy that showed up in a suit once every 2 months and made fancy presentations and they never heard from me again. I was kind of on the ground for a lot of the stuff that they were dealing with. So I think I do prefer the on-site work a little bit more often. Yeah, it's easier to stay engaged with the work as well, in a personal preference.
Okay, over here.
So last month our presentation had to do with agile and just how and that speaker's ideas and preference and opinions on how applicable agile is to any sort of project in this time frame, in the 2017 and 2019 time frame that you were there. How aware were you and your team of agile, and how did it play a role in this particular project?
That's an interesting question, because I don't know if it was ever really like an official term that we were using. I got my PMP in 2019, I believe, so right around that same time. And I don't recall agile being a big part of the test at that time. I think there's the big PMBOK book, and then there was maybe like a little 30-page thing about agile that we had to study up on, and they asked like 2 questions about it, and I don't know if I got them right or I don't know if I got them wrong. So like. From that standpoint, there wasn't much, but when I think back on it, I really feel like that big punch list that I showed you guys, I had, over 500 issues that we were working through every single day. Those priorities were shifting every single day, depending on, what was important. So like from a standpoint, that was kind of agile, because every single day we were kind of making different prioritization decisions on what needed to happen in order to, meet our end goal of opening the hospital on time. So.
Yeah, well, it's the difference between being agile and doing agile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Any other questions? Certainly, there's a couple. Online, maybe? No? Oh, here we got one.
I should know this, but you mentioned lots of moving parts, lots of stakeholders. Any CCR type activities related to the Iron Triangle, you guys have to request more time, more money, change scope, whatever?
We wanted to request more time, but the leadership wouldn't let us. So no, honestly, no, not really. No, I forget what the overall budget was. It was a big one. It was like. For sure.
All the taxpayers, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Andrew, you said that you would take what changed you on that project? What are the responsibilities?
They had, by that point, they had built up their IT team a little bit more. So they had the super users from that standpoint. And then staff members that had been using the equipment for a while also became super users. And they also kept in, at least for the Vocera and Cerner, they kind of kept in some, like, every couple of months for a while, they would come back in and provide that extra training and stuff. So there was additional support once we moved on.
So a key to you stepping in and filling the vacuum was making sure there was a succession plan for you to unfill the vacuum.
Oh yeah, very important.
Was there a question in the back?
Yes, you named one cohort. How large is it?
Depends on how you look at it. I do think, the hospital administration, the leadership was a core team. That was the chief medical officer and the superintendent, and that was probably a group of 8 or 9 folks from within the hospital leadership. There was myself and my colleague as project managers, and then the BSA Life Structures team was really the transformation team. That was a group of 3 or 4 full-time people on the project as well. And that doesn't even take into consideration what was going on with the construction planning. I had no insight into that, but that's a whole thing in and of itself. So that was something that Pepper Construction was kind of overseeing. And I think BSA Life Structures was also involved in the actual like designing of, or putting together architectural blueprints of the hospital as well. So it was a big team. When I think of the core leadership, though, I really do think of the hospital leadership as the number one leaders, and then maybe the BSA guys, and then the NetLogics were kind of there just supporting that leadership as best we could, and kind of acting as the liaison between the leadership and then the frontline staff and that kind of thing.
Any other questions? Online? No? Okay, well, thank you very much, Andrew. Oh, and here we have a presentation to make. Oops. Well, I'll take that. So you need to take the, you need to talk to Galen. Okay, and on to the rest of our program here. And we'd like to invite Sarah up. Okay. Welcome. So Sarah's in our volunteer spotlight. Sarah's been volunteering with us for some time. So how long have you been volunteering for us?
It'll be a year this December. So I've actually joined early December last year and knew right after getting my PMP certification that I wanted to get involved. So yeah, about a year.
Okay, so what have you been doing to help the chapter?
So shortly after I joined the communications team as the director of communications, and have been helping a lot with the programs and have been really enjoying that process. So it's been a lot of fun.
Okay, so what have you really gotten out of this volunteer experience?
Honestly, the best part of this volunteer experience has been the network. And so I get the opportunity to work with a lot of great project managers in my current field. It's all engineers and a lot of project managers specifically on that side. So I really wanted to engage with others outside of just roads and bridges. So
Okay, well, and we've got a lot of potential volunteers here. What recommendation would you give them about volunteering?
I would say get involved in terms of like see what different opportunities there are currently. Like don't feel like you have to dedicate yourself to one team. Kind of like see what interests you and then talk to those committees and then see how you can get involved, maybe dip your feet a little bit as well. And then just kind of jump into what you really are interested in the most.
Okay, well, very good. Well, thank you, Sarah, for all your hard work, and thank you very much for everything you do. Okay, let's hope this is no. Where did my slide go? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, we have a unique opportunity that we don't do very often. We have multiple candidates running in our election, and we'd like to give them each a chance to speak to you and let you know what they're thinking. So I think on the ballot, Galen was number one. So Galen, you want to come up and talk? At least on the ballot I got.
All right, can you guys hear me? I'm a little soft tonight. I'm dealing with a cold, so to speak. I'm sorry.
There, right there.
Right here?
You're on your mark.
Okay, excellent. Can you guys hear me? I know I'm a little soft tonight. All right, excellent. Well, I want to say thank you very much for coming out this evening. The best part of our chapter is our members. I have really enjoyed being the president the past 2 years. And of course, the one thing that has always been my standpoint is that in order to really provide for you guys, we have to build a good foundational, volunteer pool. And so I am very excited that we have built up our pool. We have built up the directors that have lots of great ideas. And so I would really like to continue in the next couple of years and continue to build out that leadership foundation and that volunteer pool so that we can be along a very long time and be able to provide excellent services for all of our members. And of course, I want to just put a quick plug in. If you guys have not voiced your opinion about what is important to you, what you would like to see from the chapter, please make sure you reach out to us. Info at pmicic.org is a great place to send us those ideas. So if there's like topic or something you would like to see us do that we're not doing, those are the type of things that we would like to hear so that we can provide those services to you. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, and next we have our other candidate for president, Kelly. Kelly, do you want to come up and give a couple of words? Yep, any place where we can see you. It'd be right on this side of the podium would
Right
be
on this
best,
side of
because
the
then you're
podium?
more into the
Okay.
camera.
Okay, are we good? All right, good evening, everyone. I am Kelly Sandstrom, and I'm truly, truly honored to be standing in front of you tonight as a candidate for president of the chapter, Central Project Management Institute, Central Indiana chapter. Many of you know me as the vice president of communications, where I've had the privilege of serving this amazing group for the last 5 years. I'm passionate about this chapter because I believe in the power of project management, not just to complete projects, but to drive real impactful change in our organizations and our communities. Before I continue, I have to take a moment to acknowledge Galen Hill, my opponent in this race. Galen was actually the first person that I came across when I applied as a volunteer for the organization. So when I submitted that application, she was the first one to contact me. So without her guidance and support, I wouldn't be standing up here tonight running for president. So Galen, thank you for your leadership and for being such an integral part of this chapter. I wish you the best of luck. As president, I'm committed to ensuring that every one of you feels the value of your membership. My vision is to create a chapter that is inclusive, dynamic, and focused on delivering the resources, connections, and opportunities that will help all of us thrive, whether that's through innovative programming, expanded networking events, or enhanced career development opportunities. Together, we will transform how we engage with each other and PMI, ensuring that we're a chapter that's leading with purpose, supporting its members, and adapting to the evolving demands of our profession. I want to foster a culture of collaboration, community, and growth, one where every voice is heard, every volunteer is recognized, and there's something for every member. By leveraging our collective community, we can elevate this chapter to new heights and truly make a difference, not just with our own professional lives, but across the broader project management community. I think the chapter's best days are ahead of us, so I'm asking for your trust and your vote, not just to lead, but to work alongside each of you as we create a future where the PMI Central Indiana chapter sets the standard for excellence. So thank you all for your support, your dedication, and being part of this incredible community. I'll be hanging around after tonight's event if you have any questions for me. Thank you.
Now, possibly through the,
Yeah, I do have one announcement. So our other candidate unfortunately had to drop.
oh,
So I don't
okay.
know if anyone wants
I
to
was
say.
going to ask whether we, through the magic of technology, could get our third candidate on. Our third candidate is running for Vice President of Communications unopposed. So we're hoping to get her on video, but apparently that's not going to happen. Okay, well, thank you to our two candidates, and feel free to.
The Southwest chapter, she was the dissolved. They were in like the south. Oops, sorry. The southwest pocket of Indiana, the boot, so to speak, of Indiana. Their members, as they've elected to, have become a part of our chapter. So our chapter now includes basically 2/3 of the state. So Liz is from the Southwest chapter and has previous board experience there and is looking to sit on our current board as the VP of Communications.
Okay, very good. So if you haven't voted, vote. If you haven't received a ballot, look in your spam folder. It might have ended up there. And you should get a unique logon that'll take you into the election system to vote. Okay, now, and I apologize for our slides being out of order here. Okay, so now we'd like to bring our speaker back up. And here, we'll get comfortable. How does that sound? Here, we'll get you a chair. Get me a chair. Oh, we got a mic for you again. And we'll, hopefully Casey will give us some things, but when we meet with the speakers, we try and do something that's engaging for the online audience as well as the in-person audience. And Rich, who's our other MC, likes to do Would You Rather. But I'm not a Would You Rather guy. I'm kind of a LOL cats guy.
Okay.
So I've got some little cats that are PMs. I have some PM cats. Oops. And they have some funny little sayings, and we're gonna pick which saying we like the best. Okay. If Casey can get them up here, and it's too small for me to see. Can you blow that up or not? I forget what we did the last time. There we go. Okay, so here's our cat, kind of staring at us. So A is, should I just replan and it's all good? And B is, so the vendor says there is no risk. What do you think?
I got to go with B because that happens too often. I don't ever believe
so how about in the room? How many think A? Okay, a minority here. How about B? Wow, okay. So apparently we have some vendor issues. Well, I'll be having a vendor seminar here coming up. How to deal with vendors. Okay, do we have the online results? Oh, here we go. Oh, A1 online. Good heavens. Okay, very good. Okay, so how about the next one here? Let's see if we get going. Uh-oh. Where are we? Okay, here we go. Looks a little surprised. Let's see. Where are the pre-sales consultants? And what do you mean that was just phase one?
I got to go with B again.
Okay. How about in a room? A? No. B? Holy cow. Okay. People are surprised by add-on projects here, I guess. Okay, and how about online? Online, B. Oh, B dominated. Excellent. Okay, what's our next cat gonna say? And the answer is, ooh, he looks like he's. I said no more changes. Or status green, time for a nap.
I got to go B because I don't know. I use that one sometimes. I don't know.
Status is green. It's nap time. How about in a room? A?
That's a better answer.
B. Ah, pretty evenly split. Pretty evenly split. So what do we got? Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, it looks like A dominated online. No more changes. Very good. Okay. How are we doing for time here? One more, how about? There we go. Okay, maybe if I click dead, the PMO will leave. Or B, and when you open your eyes, the project will be green.
I'm going to go with A. I feel like I've been on the receiving end of that before.
Okay, how about in the room? A? Okay, how about B? Looks like A is a pretty convincing lead, and online we have B. Ah, very interesting. Okay, very good. Well, I think that's probably enough for now. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Giving us some insights into your cat knowledge.
Sure. I'm a dog guy. Yeah. Okay.
door prize tonight is a lovely voucher to a future program. So if you happen to win the voucher, you're just going to email the chapter. You can email president@cmic.org, and I will send you a discount code so that you can get into whichever program you choose in the future with them.
Okay.
All right, so you need to pick one red, one blue.
One red, one blue. Okay. Should I do both or do one at a time?
Or just one at a time.
Okay. All right. Ticket number 2330073.
Patrick was red, virtual. You need to give that to John.
Would you like me to repeat?
Oh, it's in person, so you've got the.
Yeah.
And then you need blue. Now, I will forewarn you, sometimes people drop off. They have to be online in order to actually get the prize.
Otherwise, it goes to the guest speaker. All right. 4344725. 4344725.
Yay!
It seems rigged.
Fantastic. Make sure to collect your vouchers from me. The last thing that we want to do is, did you want to go over that slide or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you all for attending. We really appreciate you being here tonight. There's our PDU code. There's a QR code for the survey, and you'll be getting one PDU in business acumen. That's a tough one to get. And our next program will be online only. So we won't have an in-person meeting. It'll be November 16th. So we look forward to seeing you there. What? Last program of the year as well. And stick around afterwards. We're going to have a little meet and mingle. We're going to talk at the top about topics at the tables. So we'd love to have you stay for a little bit and talk.
Before you all decide to stand up for the call, we would like to have a photo with our speakers here. So we would like to be in a photo. We are going to put it on our social media. Please come up to the front of the room and join us for a